Alrighty, so I am going to be doing just a really quick video because my kids are going to be coming home soon and I'm going to have to pick them up at the bus stop because it has been nonstop raining here today. And so I'm going to have to make this really quick, but I really had something that was going on and brewing on in my heart that I hadn't really thought about before. And this is speaking on my testimony when I first came to Alabama. When God kept bringing me the scripture of Abraham, or the call of Abraham to leave his family, he told me to do the same thing, to leave New Mexico, take my family, I mean, not leave his family, but leave his home is what I'm saying. He told me to do the same thing, to leave my home back in New Mexico and come to Alabama. But I was still trying to, I wouldn't say rebel against that decision, but I was still, in a sense, met with a test. We'll say that. Because there were a couple of options for me to go in order for me to continue to pursue my will and not step out on faith like God was asking me to do. And so with that being said, let me just go briefly through the options and why I actually came to Alabama instead of picking those other options. In a nutshell, my two other options were, well, my three options, we'll just say my three options. The first option was to come to Alabama, where my grandmother had a building that was empty. Didn't have anything in it really, just a few rooms and, no pots, no nothing to survive with in there. And I had only visited Alabama for one time in my entire life, and that was to go to my cousin's funeral. He died when he was 18. My auntie lost her baby boy. So I came here to visit. I do remember there being a lot of trees and, nothing like what I see now, but it was just a whole different world. It was somewhere that I really didn't want to come. I remember the bugs were big. It was real humid and hot, and I just really didn't want to make Alabama my permanent home. It was just a go to the funeral thing, go back home, And I was really young. I was probably like 9-10 years old when this happened. So I was really young, not even old enough to make any sort of decisions for myself. So mind you, Alabama was just a strange place. It was kind of just not on the radar for me. It was not an option that I really wanted to do, It was just, my mom was out here at the time and my grandmother was out here at the time, and that was it. I really didn't have a whole lot going on out here, but being that my mom and my grandmother were out here, that made me a little bit more confident to come out here, because at least I would have help from somebody, And so that was option number one. Option number two was to go where my sister was, in Las Vegas. She was living in Las Vegas. She had just lost her car, but was still working. And she was having to take Ubers back and forth, walking in Las Vegas summer degree weather, mind you, or she would just take the bus, use the bus system. And so she and I were very close at the time. We were, doing our Bible studies and our word very much, a lot, She was my prayer buddy. She was my accountability buddy. She was my everything when it came to Christ. She was that person for me in Christ. And so we were talking a lot, and she was like, what? Why don't you come to Las Vegas with me? She was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. And she said that, we could work together. We could share your vehicle. We could share your van going back and forth to our jobs. We could eventually get into a bigger place, and, we can kind of live together there in Vegas. And I was thinking, well, I would still have to quit my job with that choice. And, pursue another job, because I was a flight attendant at the time. So I couldn't really still be a flight attendant, being that I had to take care of my 4 children now full time. I wasn't going to have another person to help me beside, because I was leaving the father of my 3 youngest children. I was leaving him. And, he wasn't going to be there to help me with the kids to be a flight attendant anymore. And being that my sister had her own job and her own career going on, she was a manager of Lane Bryant, or I can't remember the actual store. It's an athletic company, store company, and she was a manager there, and she had her own thing going on. There was no way she could help me with the kids with that either, so I would either have to stick them in daycare or have them go to school and try to get a job during school hours, kind of thing. So I couldn't really do that, so I still had to quit my job, but that still was an option. Now, I thought about my pros and my cons with that. Yes, I'd be helping my sister out. Yes, I would love to go live with my sister, but how could we squeeze in a one-bedroom apartment using trying to use the same vehicle, having different schedules? Her hours were crazy. Who knows what kind of hours I would have been able to fit into that schedule. You know, it was just a lot of pros and cons that I had to weigh out. And Vegas being, you know, the city that it is, I really didn't want to raise my children in Las Vegas. It's an awesome, fun city, but to raise my children there, that just wasn't sitting right with me. And so, you know, I really wasn't going to be stepping out in faith on that situation as much as I would in Alabama, like God wanted me to. So I just, you know, that with my convictions on that, I decided against that option as well. And so option number 3, my dad, my dad was so proud of me becoming a flight attendant. He knew that I was very passionate about it. He was just so proud, you know. And so he said, Zipporah, why don't you come move out here to Houston, Texas, where I live? I have my house. It's, you know, you've got plenty of room to live here. I'll watch the children while you go and pursue your dreams and your career still. And I'll watch the children for you. And whenever you get back, you're going to have a home to live in. There's going to be plenty of room, food for you to eat. You're going to have a babysitter. And, you know, everything is going to be great. You know, you're going to still be able to hold on to your job. And I was like, you know what, that sounds pretty appealing. Let me go ahead and do that. And then that conviction kept coming on. But I told you to step out in faith. God told me to step out in faith. And you go where I asked you to go to. And God kept bringing Alabama out into my mind. Alabama, Alabama. That's where I want you to go. That's where I want you to go. And it was out of my comfort zone naturally, because I didn't want to go to this random building in the middle of Alabama in the small town, you know, small country town where I'm living right now. You know, I didn't want to have to suffer, you know, I didn't want to have to quit my job. And then at least if I lived with my sister, I knew I was going to be able to get a job right away, and I was going to have some security there, and having an actual apartment to live in, a home to live in, you know. You know, it was just going to be a better option than going to Alabama, you know. It was just, it sounded more appealing to me than going to Alabama at the time. So when I was weighing out my options, you know, I was really leaning towards Houston. I was like, let me go move to Houston. You know, when I was training to become a flight attendant, my training was in Houston, and that's where I actually officially met my dad for the first time in 23 years of my life. And that of course naturally was amazing. I got to meet my father, my real father, for the first time, and we rebonded again as father and daughter for the first time. And so I was like, you know, this will be a chance for me to even bond further with my real dad, and for me to hold on to my career, hold on to my job. I won't have to suffer, you know. I'll have the income, I'll have the money, I'll have the home, I'll have the security, I'll have the babysitter, you know. But that option left me with not being a mom still to my children the way God has called me to be a mom to my children, and also to step out in faith, fully, finally relying on God to take care of me. And so it kept weighing in my heart. It kept weighing in my heart. I'm like, God, what do I do? What do I do? I knew what I needed to do. I knew in my heart what God had told me to do. I knew. And so I had to turn that option down as well. I had to say, God, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I cannot accept that offer. I have to go to where my heart is telling me to go, where God has called me to go. And of course, you know, did I hurt my dad? Yes, he was upset. He was like, you know, I know you're going where your mom is because you've known your mom for all of your life, for most of your life. But this is a chance for me and you to get to know each other. And I want you to keep your career. I want you to have your career and retire from your career. I want to bond I want to have the opportunity to bond with my grandchildren. And so naturally he was upset. You know, he told me that this is the option that he wanted me to go with, you know, being that, because he thought that I was going to go where my mom was, because that's what I've known. You know, I was comfortable with going to where my mom was, and he was upset because she, you know, already had her time to bond with the children and bond with me, let me do that, you know. And so it was in my heart. Like, I don't want to upset my dad. And then my sister was a little, well, she wasn't upset, but she was disappointed, I should say the word is, because she really needed my help. She really needed my help in my vehicle, and using my vehicle so she wouldn't have to walk back and forth and spend so much money on Ubers. And it was a time for us to bond spiritually, even more on a deeper level together, being that we were just really bonding spiritually in those times and those moments. And she was the one that got me through those hard times. I would just call her, we'd pray, we'd get in our word, it would just be a really good bonding time for us. And so she was disappointed. So, it was like, God, what do I do? So I had to go with my heart. I came to Alabama, and thank God that I did, because little did I know I was going to meet my husband, my true husband, and get my life started in the way that God wanted me and was calling me to get my life started. I got my ministry started here on YouTube. I was able to stay at home with my children and raise my children for the first time. Because I've I've had a full-time job since I was 18 years old. I really didn't get to have the opportunity and the bonding opportunity to be with my children and raise my children like I always saw myself doing. And so that happened. I've never been closer to my children. I've never had more opportunity to be with my children and just teach them the word and teach them in the way that they should go. And also being a good steward over my household, taking care of what God has given me and blessed me with, and also being a good God-fearing woman and wife. I don't believe that I would have grown as much spiritually if I would have chose those other options in pursuing the careers and staying with the job and, all of that stuff, because God has now called me to a place of rest, peace, to himself. And in an isolation that is onto him, that I was able to be used by him and his will. And thank God I did, because like I said, I met my true husband out here. I got my ministry started. I'm now walking out the godly mother, wife, and woman that I always truly inspired to be. And nothing but fruit and blessings has come from it. And, as I continue to pray for my dad and pray for my sister, they're flourishing in their situations as well. So it was all in all win-win situation. But did I hurt some people? Did I disappoint some people that I truly love along the way? Yes, I did. But I had to go with what God was calling me to do. So my message in this and in telling you guys this story is, if God is calling you to do something in his will and to himself, yes, it's going to hurt people. Yes, it's not going to be the easy route. No, is it going to be easy? No. But if God has called you to do it, the fruit is going to come. God is going to take care of you. You've got to step out on faith and do it. I'm telling you all, as a witness, as a walking, talking testimony of it, it all has worked out from the day I chose to leave my home in New Mexico. I did not want to leave my home in New Mexico. I did not. But being that I had no family there, being that I had to get away from this man that I knew was going to just turn my world upside down if I were to stay there and make my life, crap, just living there. I had to leave. I had to go. So staying there was not an option, even though this was my home for the last 19 years. Since 1997, I lived there up until 2016. I lived there. This was my home. This was where I never thought I saw myself leaving. But I had to go because God was calling me to go. And in weighing out the three options that I had, the convictions that I had were so strong that I came to Alabama. And look at where I am now. No, has it been easy? No. Does it continue to be a struggle? Yes, it does continue to be a struggle. But I'm happy, I'm at peace, I'm joyful. My life has grown and has exceedingly so that exceeded my expectations of the blessings that I thought I could ever receive. But I had to step out on faith to do it. So step out on faith. Do as God has called you to do. Don't be afraid, or do it afraid, as some would say, because I was afraid. But you know what? That my excuse me, my faith overtook my fear. And so you've got to do the same thing. Continue to pray. Keep that close relationship with God, because that's what's going to get you through. stepping out in faith and actually believing in God and trusting in God is what's going to see it through. I hope that this story helped you guys, because this is what happened. This is what became a reality for me in my life. I love you guys. Hope you guys have a good day. Bye.